This is a memo that describes how we're going to take out 7 countries in 5 years, starting with Iraq and then Syria, Lebanon, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, and finishing off Iran.
Sudan.
Yeah. And, you know, I mean, they haven't, it's not like that plan was followed perfectly to a T, but a lot of it sure was. It's like insane that this was just said. And that's not just like if we didn't have such a corrupt press, how do they not talk about that every day?
Every day.
Like, why does that never come up? Oh, it's like, oh, as we fought all of these wars, no one went, but this is exactly what I heard Mr. 4-star General tell me was your plan. And you've never come to the American people and said, this is my plan. You're just like, so, and what's really interesting about it, right, is it just reveals this like the way propaganda works. Because if you think about it, we start fighting the war in Afghanistan. We're in the war in Afghanistan by late 2001. It's not till 2003 we're in Iraq, right? And then it's not till 2010 that we're in Libya. 2012 we're in Syria, you know, and then in Yemen, then in all the, and it's like each time they had their own little propaganda story for why we had to go into this war now. And you're like, no, motherfucker, this was always planned. You decided in 2001 you were doing this. So don't tell me this is because Gaddafi's about to go genocidal, or because Saddam has weapons of mass destruction, or because Bashar al-Assad is killing his own people. It's like, no. This is just your latest little excuse now for the war that you already wanted to do. And that's how this shit really works, man. It's like they decide they want to fight these wars. Then they make up a bullshit excuse that they tell the American people. Then these weapon companies rake in hundreds of billions of dollars in profits, and babies get slaughtered. Like, that's what really happens. Like, innocent men, women, and children die, get exploded to death, starve to death, get displaced. Like, it's just the most evil shit in the world.
And we want to think of ourselves as a good guy.
That was a great clip. And you see more people are waking up to the U.S. war machine. This is why you see more people are independent than ever. More people are rejecting the two-party duopoly than ever. It drives me crazy when you listen to liberal analysis. They would say people don't want Joe Biden to run for office because of his age. And I'm sure there's some people that say that. But that's like the least of my concerns. People see what Biden is doing in Ukraine. People see Biden as another tool of the empire. The only people who don't care about the crimes of the U.S. empire are the people who still vote Republican and Democrat. Because this is where we draw the line to say what's popping a Biden 71. Big shout out to our homie. But this is why I'm not voting in the Dem primary. I'm not going to vote for a Republican or Democrat for office, because both parties are complicit with the Ukraine war. Both want to support the Ukraine war. Both want to go to war with China. And the progressives, the DSA left that is telling you that we should vote Democrat every 2 years. These are the same people who are trying to gaslight people that foreign policy is not an extremely important core principle to hold as a leftist. So if you are supporting the Ukraine war, if you are complicit with votes that directly leads to increased weapon defense contractor profits in never-ending war, and you're supporting and endorsing candidates that do the same thing, that endorsing Zionism, that endorsing militarism, that's something that is a deal breaker for RBN and our family and our friends. But there's a coordinated effort by the establishment, especially by Bernie Sanders and the progressive left, to make foreign policy not that big of a deal. And this is the key difference between us and the boutique left, the NATO left, what I call them. They want to convince us that foreign policy is not a big deal, but foreign policy always come back home. If you are someone of a marginalized community, if you're poor, if you're a worker, if you are a son of immigrants, you know it's only these privileged suburban wine mom leftists that keep trying to tell us that, oh man, Joe Biden, he's not that bad. Yeah, he's a war criminal. Yeah, he doubled down on all Joe Biden's policies, but he's not that big of a deal. He's not that bad. But no, these are deal breakers. Foreign policy always come back home. So you have in the United States, people are being labeled a domestic terrorist because they are protesting against Cop City and other extreme authoritarian actions of the Biden administration and Democratic mayors all over this country. So they are arresting them by using unhinged state violence, using tear gas on them. They also detain them and label them as domestic terrorists. Where does that sound familiar? Where does that sound familiar? That's Guantanamo Bay. That's what Israel does to the Palestinians, labeling people as terrorists, stripping them of their rights. And that is what's happening in our government. It always comes back home. Tear gas is a war crime. You guys understand? It's a war crime to use tear gas, but they use tear gas on their own population all the time. And then the media and the people will justify it, even though the police oftentimes will start it. So it's important. It's extremely important, not just showing global solidarity for victims of U.S. imperialism, but it's the acknowledgement that all these issues are connected. We always will be impacted, and they will always come back home. That's why the position of the RBN left, we draw a hard no, a hard line against people who repeat talking points about Venezuela. What's poppin', DD? My friend. We gonna roast Juan Guaido. It's been quite some time. Guess who followed? I don't know if she unfollowed him now. I'm sure she did it. But AOC at one point followed Juan Guaido, and she deferred to caucus leadership regarding our blatant coup of Venezuela. Now AOC, now trying to paint herself as the champion of democracy now. Even though when it came to the Trump administration, teamed up with Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer, also with Bolsonaro, who was sending death squads into Venezuela as well. You had the right-wing president of Colombia that was extremely anti-Venezuela. That's why they're melting down to the new left-wing president of Colombia, because he's not going along with it. Lula's not going along with the demonization of Venezuela. These are giant deals, because the West has done that for quite some time, and this was backed up by AOC and the squad. They brought Juan Guaido, someone who the Venezuelan people hate, by the way. I'm going to show you guys some funny footage. Because now MSNBC or CNN, I think it's CNN, it's the same fucking shit at the end of the day. CNN, they blaming him. They blaming Juan Guaido, like, why haven't you successfully overthrown the Venezuelan people? Because Venezuela is another example of how United States sanctions fail. Because they put sanctions on Venezuela, and John Bolton and the Trump administration was very open. You got Blinken and others that's very open about the strategy here of crippling the economy, making people turn against Maduro. But people are smarter than that. So when they put these sanctions on people, the only thing that happens is they rally behind their leader, because they know that there are Western imperialist capitalist forces behind the scenes that's crippling his economy. And then there's someone like Juan Guaido come out, this class traitor, because that is what Nicolas Maduro's opposition is. Just like Brazil, when you look at the opposition in Venezuela, it's the white-skinned, upper-class bourgeoisie, and that's exactly who Juan Guaido represents. So he comes in, gets propped up by the United States, so he's immediately rejected by the people. He had to have security, and when he does not have security, he gets his ass beat, like he did when he was at a restaurant last year. So because of this massive failure of the West and Juan Guaido to implement this coup, there's the famous coup attempt in the Trump administration where the people who tried to kill and assassinate Nicolas Maduro, they lost a battle to some farmers, and a few of them pissed their pants as well. It was hilarious. One of the many failed assassination attempts on Maduro. And that's why I'm gonna say this: like, Maduro is not perfect, but I've explained this many times. Maduro, the way he has navigated Western aggression has been incredible to see, and it's been very expertly done, because his policy has been, we cannot retaliate, we got to continue to take the high ground. because we're gonna outlast them. The Western sanctions not gonna last. People know the West is trying to overthrow me. They're being very obvious about it. So we can't fly off a handle. We can't do anything crazy, and that's why Maduro and many Venezuelans they just took it. They just took the Western aggression, but that paid off in the long term because the sanctions rallied the people behind Maduro, and that's why the Venezuela opposition party and Juan Guaido is a joke in that country.